morning and welcome to our last webinar for 2020. Today, we'll explore a difficult subject, one that if we as leaders get a handle on, changes how we have conversations. Have you ever finished a meeting or a conversation and you knew there were gaps in the information required and you had no idea how to cut through the deafening silence? You went ahead anyway, and guess what? 3 months later, it came back and bites you in the proverbial. What is that about? Why don't we trust and respond to our nagging thoughts? Or have you had the experience where someone said to you, "Didn't you know that?" Or better still, "I could have told you that weeks ago." Or this one, "I knew that wouldn't work." I don't know what your internal dialogue or emotional response is to these offhanded comments. Mine is absolute frustration. So put your hand up. Have you had a similar experience? Wave your hand at everybody. Good, we're in good company. Consider this. Just maybe you're the reason people don't give you those important details that would have changed your decision. Some of you who've been on our webinars previously would have heard me speak of Rose and the conversation she had with me over 30 years ago. What I haven't previously shared was the feedback she gave me. Although hard to take at the time, it was that mirror held up to my face that I couldn't ignore. As I recall, she said this to me: "You don't listen. You lead from my way or the highway. People don't come and tell you anything because they know they'll be dismissed or ignored." This stopped me in my tracks. I had to acknowledge the courage it took for her to confront me on my behaviour and her risking the possible consequences. So, what does it take to build a culture where people feel empowered to speak up? As leaders, we are at the source of that kind of culture. We are also at the source of doing nothing to change it. The fallout of people not telling us what we need to know is we make decisions on poor information or in a void. Before we go into how you correct this situation in our businesses, let's deepen our understanding of the problem. Just for now, accept there is some truth in this about your workplace. If you notice you are dismissing what is being said, then my guarantee is there is some truth in it. And this mirror, blah, blah, blah. Sorry, my teleprompter just went. Hang on, everybody. Okay, then my guarantee is there is some truth in this mirror we are holding up to you. And it's the same one that Rose held up to me. Believe me, it was not easy to accept what she said. My default response was to revert to my dismissive behaviour. Lucky for me, for once, I didn't and stayed in the discomfort of owning it. I've worked with many CEOs who on the outside appear easygoing and mild-mannered. However, when you confront them or put them under pressure, they get really ugly really fast, and no one is game to go there again. The news of your poor behaviour spreads like wildfire throughout the business, and the violence of silence becomes the cultural norm. Breaking down this wall of silence takes enormous courage and effort on your part as the leader, and owning how you created it in the first step. Not all of us have a Rose in our business who is courageous enough to confront us. We've worked with enough businesses to know that silence is happening in every organisation. Are you willing to stop and have a good hard look at the culture and your part in causing that silence? We are assuming you are interested. That is why you're here. Just nod so that I know. Okay, cool. Now I can relax. So let's go to our first question. We will send you to a breakout room where you can introduce yourself if you haven't already done so and discuss what are the signs of the violence of silence in businesses. Off you go. Welcome back. So what are the signs of the violence of silence in our businesses? And how do you recognize it's happening? Did you come up with any of these? Pushback, stonewalling, challenging of ideas. There is little or no feedback. One person does most of the talking. They don't talk about the elephant in the room. People make the same mistakes more than once. Let's dig into what some of these signs look like. What is pushback? How do you know if that is what you're experiencing? If you push back against something, such as a change or criticism, you refuse to accept it or attempt to prevent it. In a perfect world, when you roll out your new policy or program, everyone is as excited as you are. Okay, just kidding. Now, it's not a question if you're going to get pushback. The question is, when will the pushback come and how are you going to deal with it? If you want to reduce the pushback on your new initiative, ensure you do the following. Keep people informed. Don't feed them BS. Allow people to feel like they have some control or are included. People use pushback as a punishment for feeling negated. It's a response to them feeling powerless. Second, acknowledge their feelings. Whether we like it or not, our jobs define us. And if our feelings are dismissed, we feel like our livelihood is being threatened. When this is their occurring world, they become defensive, a sure sign of pushback. How about this? Everyone thinks change is a good thing when it's happening to someone else. When you initiate any change process, enrolling people in it and how it will benefit them is paramount. Also, acknowledge how you feel about it. Don't pretend that you're not also challenged by it. Next, make sure you have plans and timelines in place. That gives people a safety net. They know where this is going. If you do not handle this well, you will get stonewalling. Stonewalling looks like this. People say yes to you when they actually mean no. They give you the silent treatment or act busy, put their heads down and pretend you are not there. You could be standing right in front of them. When you raise this with them, they minimize your concerns or they point blank refuse to communicate with you. Maybe this is feedback to you as the leader. When people are stonewalling, the question to ask yourself is, what am I doing that is giving me this response? True communication is the response you get. This may be a bitter pill for you to swallow. However, when you do, it will begin to unravel the violence of silence in your business. Part of this unraveling will include creating a supportive environment where asking for assistance is recognized as a strength. This is one of our measures in our engagement test, which measures how much fun people are having at work. People who are having fun are more productive and happier. To repeat, mutual support is the capacity your workplace has to create an environment where asking for assistance is recognized as a strength. If you'd like to know more about this, listen to our webinar, Are You Having Fun Yet? The recording is in our library on our website. As a leader, if you want people to break their silence, make it okay for them not to know. Also notice if you're a know-it-all. Both behaviours will shut down open communication. If you're the one doing most of the talking, there is no room for anyone else to contribute or be heard. There is an old saying, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them accordingly. That is not the solution to one person dominating the conversation. No. When we are building relationships and you're in the flow of creative conversations in the business, you may notice that people automatically share the time. Cast your mind back to a time when your team just flowed in the conversation and came up with extraordinary ideas. Notice they shared the time. Let's do a little test. Rate your business on a scale of 1 to 5. How corrosive is the silence? 1 is, there's no sign of the violence of silence. We have really healthy debate, and when we fight, there are no put-downs and we make great decisions. That's who we are. Yay! 5, it's at epidemic levels, it's extremely corrosive, and the silence is alive and well. Now, don't overthink your response. Don't think of the people you get along with, and think of those rather that you avoid. Cool. Write the number down. You all done that? Okay. How many of you scored 2 or higher? Put your hand up. 2 or higher. Okay, good. You've got a problem. You only need one person not telling you something for you to make some big decisions that will cost you an enormous amount of time, energy, and money. So, we've accepted there is a problem. Yay! The first step to solving a problem is to accept it rather than to live in denial. Could you consider that you as a leader Could you consider that as a leader, the reason we end up with the silence is we are unaware of it happening? While it is happening, we drive fear into our organizations. When we hear people are afraid of us, we are shocked because that is not what we want to create. When new people arrive, it takes them a while to accept that this is a safe place. When leaders engage in open conversation, people watch and learn this is the cultural norm and develop the muscle to present their concerns and the confidence to share their views, knowing they will be heard and their input is valued. Recently, I got a piece of feedback from a fairly new member of our team. They called the meeting. I noticed that I got uneasy and started going through a mental list of all the things I'd done badly recently. Then I went to, oh no, they're going to leave. Now, if I was worried, how must they be feeling? The feedback was given, I took it and acknowledged that I just caused a problem for them, and that in the future, before I went off on a tangent that would impact them, I'd speak with them first. Now, I'm not that transformed that I didn't want to defend myself. I have learned to zip it, listen and learn. Using this example of learning on the job, head off to your next breakout rooms and discuss our next question. What causes the silence, and how does that impact the people and the business? We were just having a little technical issue. Welcome back, everyone. What causes the silence, and how does that impact people and the business? In my experience, fear is the major driver of silence. It takes many forms: fear of dismissal, fear of retribution, fear of ridicule or embarrassment, just to name a few. This slide behind me is an acronym for fear: false evidence appearing real. When fear is dominating the show for me, I look at what is driving this, and to cut across it, I ask myself, what's the worst thing that could happen if I said this? What I discovered, rarely do my worst fears ever eventuate, and in most cases, people welcome what I have to say. What often drives our fear is wanting to be liked and to be seen as nice. I recently read Terry Goodkind's first book, The Wizard's First Rule, which is do no harm. In his second book, The Stone of Tears, he reveals the wizard's second rule: the greatest harm can result from the best intentions. It is explained as follows. It sounds like a paradox. Kindness and good intentions can be an insidious path to destruction. Sometimes doing what seems right is wrong and causes more harm. For me, this is the epitome of being nice. And our acronym for nice at Integrity and Values is nothing in me cares enough to tell you the truth. When I read Terry's second rule, it resonates with me. Being nice and not having the courage to speak up and tell the truth as leaders holds everyone back, including you. Take a moment and think of a conversation that you have been putting off. What causes your silence? Who do you think you are protecting? If you think you are protecting the other person, think again. It's self-preservation. Your fear is driving your silence just like it drives the silence of your people, and they will not thank you for that lack of feedback. What is the impact of silence on the business? Decisions are made in a void. It's not rocket science. If you don't have all the relevant information on a particular issue, how can you possibly make the right decisions and the best one? Just because you have CEO written over your door doesn't mean you have all the answers or are across every process in the business. Speak to the people who are. Discover the bottlenecks, and more importantly, listen to their input and feedback. When their thinking is valid and will move the business forward, ensure you take action on it. When you do, you encourage further contribution. Next, people are unhappy. When people are unhappy, they make mistakes or do less than adequate work because no one listens to me here anyway, or they have stopped caring. Unhappy people either quit and leave, or worse, they quit and stay. How many of you know that you've got quit and stayers in your business? Put your hand up. You've got quit and stayers. This is a huge conversation. Go and talk to them and find out what is causing their unhappiness. And is there a possibility to re-engage them? Reworks are a hidden cost that most times are ignored because to calculate it would be scary. Here's a challenge for you. Take one small area of your business and calculate the hard costs on the reworks. Don't try and eat the whole elephant. Just take a small bite. One of the biggest costs of silence is reworks. People are no longer querying orders, they feel powerless and just do as they are told, knowing this won't work. You will often hear them say, "They don't care, so why should I?" Start noticing the signs. People have stopped thinking and have just become a cog in the wheel. As the leader, you are at the source of this attitude. If you want it to be different, you have the power to change it. Some time ago, I was taken on a tour of a client's factory. And as I was standing there watching this huge piece of machinery get loaded onto the back of a trailer to be transported from Newcastle to the northwest of Western Australia, the manager said to me, "That'll be back in a couple of weeks." And when I queried him as to why, he said, "It's not quite right." My response was, "So why are you sending it?" He said, "They want to meet their on-time delivery. The client will inspect it and send it straight back and we'll have to redo it." I was floored and took note. When we ran our Leadership in Action program, one of our important measures for the success of the program was reducing the reworks for this client. Next, a lack of collaboration. If people are not talking to each other and challenging what is going on, how can they possibly be collaborating? These are just a few of the signs that silence is running the business. Get responsible for your part as a leader and make a commitment to interrupt the behaviours that drive the silence. Refuse to make decisions in a void. Check in regularly with your staff before they become unhappy. Go in and hunt for the reworks and clean up the processes that causes them. Encourage collaboration. That brings me to our last question for the day. What are the attributes of a leader who breaks the silence? Off you go. Welcome back. Leaders who are willing to break and challenge the silence gain a sense of freedom that allows them to lead inside of living the vision and values of the business and staying aligned to their personal values. Here are some of the attributes these leaders display. We will deep dive into a few of them. It takes courage to lead, and as Brené Brown says, you can't get to courage without walking through vulnerability. People think vulnerability is a weakness, and that could not be further from the truth. One of the signs of a lack of vulnerability is being a know-it-all, pretending you have all the answers. We become dangerous to the business when we... Hang on, I've lost my place. We become dangerous to the business when we cannot be with, I don't know. As long as we maintain this position, people cannot be a contribution to us. And having to answer all the questions in the business is exhausting. An exercise I've given many clients to overcome their need to answer any questions is simply to pause and say, what do you think? Then wait. If a question makes any sense, they will have an idea or a thought and are looking for validation. If they are completely off the mark, invite them to a conversation. Begin with, what has you say that? Walk me through your thought process. Our knee-jerk response is to give the answer to the question. However, this does not grow your people or your capacity to become the mental coach. It also ensures they remain dependent on you and you feeding their insecurities and your own. When a leader can display their vulnerability, their people will rally behind them. Imagine that. When that brave woman Rose came into my office and courageously said what she did, she gave me a gift. Here's the problem with us as leaders. The research says that we do not want to listen to people who report to us or accept feedback from those who sit below us in the hierarchy of the organization. We see their feedback as less legitimate or accurate. Big problem. Next, we need to demonstrate our capacity to reverse roles. This is the epitome of empathy. Empathy does not mean you agree. It simply means you get it. We have a whole webinar on empathy versus sympathy on our website. There is an ocean between these two ways of being. Mastering and identify when we are being sympathetic rather than empathetic allows us to listen to our people at a whole new level. Next, what are you listening for? Let's combine being able to listen with being available and staying present to what they are saying. When you are listening to people, what is the filter that you listen through? If we listen through our judgments and assessments, we miss the gold. Do you become irritated with the complaints? I do. And if I don't catch myself, my dismissiveness can take both of us out. Using the 3 C's is a tool for listening at different levels and guiding the conversation. It saves them and me. This is how it works. When you hear the complaint, immediately ask them, what are you worried about? You'll find out what their concerns are. Stay alert. If silence is the game at your place, then you will need to reassure them that you are interested. Then they'll tell you underneath their complaint is a concern, often expressed as fear, and below the concern is their commitment. Their concern is often driven by the fear that they will not fulfill on the commitments that they have made to the business. When you get to this place in the conversation, you can now coach and mentor them, ease their fears, and make a plan. Then give them the support that will have them deliver. When we have this conversation this way with our people, they feel safe, knowing we are available. Being consistent and predictable in just this area will break the silence. When we behave like this, it is a clear demonstration of our personal values. Are people and relationships important to you? If they are not, you will struggle to lead effectively. Do not say one thing and demonstrate the complete opposite. Your people are watching you. When we are inauthentic and pretend they are disappointed, they lose trust because they can see the lie. By the way, none of this will make any difference if you don't do the work to clean up your internal fight. Our second secret for success in life and business is to learn to fight and fight clean. The biggest fight we clean up is the one we have with ourselves. It's the argument you have with the fraud who lives in your head. I have one. Oops, they'll find out I don't know what I'm doing, so I'll pretend that I do. And guess what? We don't even notice that internal dialogue is taking the lead. The violence of silence is what occurs when we as leaders cannot handle our own fight. The fight that is happening around us becomes secondary if we can't do that. The path to cleaning up that fight is being vulnerable, and that doesn't mean falling on your sword. It's simply owning it. To transform a culture of silence to a culture of open, robust conversations, develop these 4 practices. They are the result of thousands of hours of observation of those who speak up, even about really risky topics. Reverse the risk equation. Most of us decide whether to speak up by considering the risk of doing so. Those who are best at having robust conversations don't think first about the risk of speaking up. They think first about the risk of not speaking up. Taking this on and flipping your thinking makes you far more likely to open your mouth. Next, soften your emotions. Our conversations often go poorly because we are irritated, angry, or even disgusted. Remember my rose story? My irritations and dismissiveness are what greeted people. Our people react to these emotions. They sense them more than the words we speak. So, before opening your mouth, open your heart and your mind. See your people as reasonable, rational, and decent human beings who are eager to do the right thing. This practice softens strong emotions and ensures you come across as a caring human being. Next, create safety. People become defensive when they feel unsafe. Use our inoculation lesson to start a high-stakes conversation by assuring the other person of your positive intentions and your respect for them. When others feel respected and trust your motives, they feel safe and will let their guard down and begin to listen, even if the topic is difficult. Next, listen and learn. After you create an environment of safety, express your concerns, and then invite discussion. Encourage the other person to disagree with you. Those who are best at robust conversations don't just come to make their point. They come willing to listen and learn. When we model these practices, we lay the foundation for a culture of open communication, where our people speak up, share concerns, confront each other, advocate for better solutions, and achieve alignment and agreement. Cultures of open communication are full of happier, more engaged people. They also reap the kind of bottom line results that can mean the difference between success and failure. When we tell the truth, you build cultures that people will absolutely love and enjoy being a part of. Your challenge is to break the silence, and I promise your people will follow suit, and you will all enjoy the rewards. Thank you for being here today. I'm really excited about the work that we've been able to do so far. I'll hand you back to Faye.